Hey, this is Frank Nieto with Vision Quest Auto, and today I'm reviewing the Land Rover Range Rover Velar, which is this car. Um, the Velar, it's a long name. The Velar is the number two point when you're coming into the Range Rover family. So you start off and you have the Evoque, and then the next step up from the Evoque is this car, which is the Velar. The Velar, though, is not an entry level vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. It's an extremely luxurious model. It matches everything you'd want in a Range Rover. Like I said, it's got all the luxury and tech features. Like this thing is really specced out that you would want with a Range Rover, but it also has that off-roadability and it also has the classic Range Rover looks, which I love. So we're going to talk about where it slots into the Range Rover family, who this car is for, and really its long-term outlook. And then of course we'll have our categories, which today we'll have that in our ratings, our Vision Quest Auto ratings, which change week by week depending on the car. We're also going to talk about what car this is and fat guy in little coat. So let's get to it. So the first thing that you'll notice with the Velar, or at least what some of the things that people tend to notice first with the Velar, are its handles. These handles pop out when you when it's ready to enter, and they stay popped out. So it's not like other cars where sometimes you have to pop them in and out. They'll stay popped out as long as you want them to until you actually drive and lock the car. So here's what they look like when you're driving or locked. They slide right in. Very simple to use. You have this little button here. As long as you have the key on you. So that's what it looks like locked. And then unlocked. There you go. Pops right out. Um, One of the things that I really like about that Range Rover does with this car, though, is it's really pretty cool. When you start the car up, it's ready to go. And by ready to go, I mean it'll actually drop your sunshade back. It, um, you know, everything that you left off with is there, ready to go. If you have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay on, it's going to go to the last song you were playing. It'll start playing it. It can be loud, so my word of warning is if you're going to be leaving the music on, playing it, there you go, it locks up on its own. If you're going to be playing this music on your, when you leave the car, what you're going to want to do is dial the sound down a little bit more, because if you come out, like if you come in, it's late at night, the end of the day, volume's up, that's fine. You go to leave in the morning, maybe it's 6 a.m., you may not want that same song blaring at you. So just a word of warning to be prepared for that. So I would just say, start your volume, maybe lower the volume yourself before you leave the car. Um, Another thing I want to talk about, though, is just the classic design here. You have everything. It's got this classic Range Rover look. It's got this classic Range Rover shape. It's a really nice looking car. Pros and cons for this car are pretty simple. It's a great driving car. That's number one. It is extremely smooth. You rarely feel bumps in the road. More importantly, you do not hear anything really outside. If you do, you know that it's extremely loud because this car is super quiet. Like, they usually say about Lincolns that they're library quiet. In this case, this is even quieter than a Lincoln. So I don't know how much more quiet you can get than a library, but like, I don't know. This is a similar level thing where, I would just say this is library quiet. This is really, really nice sounding. The sound system itself is fantastic. The Meridian sound system just is crisp and clear. It's one of my favorite stereos in a car. Um, Visibility is great. The seats really comfortable. All the tech is there. Um, and I'll show you in a minute too. Like one of the things that Range Rover does is that they include their own skin over Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and they call it Pivi Pro. Um, Odd name, not my favorite name, but it does have a really nice feature where everything's touch centric on this car, which I'm not a big fan of, but in general. But in this one, I actually do like it because most of the time what you have is it's very easy to access the features that you're going to want. Your general settings are there, your quick settings, your quick menu is right there ready to go. And in that quick menu, you'll have things like you can turn off auto hold, you can turn off stop start, very quick. You also have your climate functions. With the climate function, you can access the heated and cooled seats. It's awesome there. You can access your volume. The other thing that's great about this car is that the steering wheel has is a little bit touch centric, and I'll show you that in a minute. But all of the features that you'd want, all of the controls that you want, are right there, ready to go. The volume control is very easy to use. It's very easy to see. There's multiple screens in this car. So you got your main infotainment screen, which is pretty massive, but then you've also got the digital control, the digital display in front, right behind you, where your tachometer, speedometer, all at, where your speedometer is at. And then you have a head-up display in this model as well. So all your information's there. You'll see where your volume's at, so it's pretty easy to adjust. You can actually turn the heated steering wheel on right away. You can turn on and off your lane centering, which is great. You don't have to jump into multiple menus. So it's touch centric. Everything is pretty much touch centric, but it's very easy to control and get to where you want it to be. So that's awesome. Okay, but the one thing that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to this car's tech is that, and I've had this happen multiple times, and it's not even just with this particular Range Rover. I've had it happen in other Range Rovers I've driven, which is the Range Rover Sport in particular had this same issue, which is that most of the time you start up the car and it'll remember, it'll find your phone right away. Like the Bluetooth connection actually is awesome. It goes in right away, so it'll find whatever your phone is right away. The thing that's disconcerting is that sometimes Android Auto or Apple CarPlay just doesn't connect out of the bat. The nice thing is that Bluetooth does connect, so you'll actually have access to your phone. You'll have access to all of your media controls. So, and it's actually, because the Pivi Pro skin is pretty extensive, you'll actually be able to see what track listing. So if you're in a playlist on Spotify, you'll actually be able to see all the other songs that you can come up, and you can tag them. So you can still access most of the features. But if you want it Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it might be disconnected. The ways that I found to reconnect it is you can either jump into the menu and select Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It'll pop up which phone you want to connect it to. You select it, it connects. If that doesn't work, or if you want to use something else, what you'll have to do is go into your Bluetooth settings, disconnect your phone, go into Android Auto or Apple CarPlay choice, reselect your phone. It doesn't take that long to do all of this. This can be done in under 30 seconds to a minute maximum. But it is a pain in the butt when it happens multiple times. Now, again, I don't want to just say that this is a consistent issue with Range Rover. I've just had it a couple times with different Range Rovers. What this could be, though, is that these press cars tend to get a lot of different users in there. So it's a possibility that so many phones, maybe it kind of just messes with the system a little bit. Um, I don't want to disconnect phones because I'm not sure which one is the main driver of this car's phone. I'm just not going to disconnect settings if I don't know that for a fact. So I haven't messed with that. It hasn't been a big deal. If it's your own vehicle and it's just you and your spouse or you and your kids or something like that, you only have 2 to 3, maybe 4 phones in there. Maybe this isn't a main issue, but I could still seeing it if you get to that 4 level. Maybe this is a bit of an issue. So the one thing that I would recommend is just having that in mind, being able to quickly reconnect stuff. Again, not a huge deal, but it's just something I want to mention. Again, also though, with this is that Pivi Pro is um, updated through over-the-air updates. So it's possible that if this is an issue, that this is something that Land Rover will be fixing going forward. So it could be nothing, but it's just something I've observed. And when you get into those kind of things, it's not that bad a vehicle. Only other con that I have on this car is really, besides that aspect, the only other con that I have is there's a tremendous amount of power in either version of the engine that you get with the Velar. But the one thing that I've noticed is, and this is a general with a couple different Range Rovers, um, sometimes there's a little hesitancy to start at first. It's a split second. It's not, it's noticeable when you first drive, but it's you get used to it, and it's very easy. It could be that it just maybe, if you slam on the gas, like it'll take off quicker. But I've just noticed that it's if you just kind of tap the gas when you're taking off from a standstill, it's a little bit not hesitant even. I don't even know if that's the right word. It's a little bit slower to take off than you might notice in some other cars. Not a massive deal. This isn't going to be stuck there or anything like that, but just something to have to keep in mind. You might need to put a little bit more pressure on the gas pedal to start to accelerate from a stop. It's got a ton of tech features. It's got a ton of comfort features. Just really drives really nice. The design is great. Back seat's a little bit tighter, and I would like. Um, Not a massive deal, and I think you kind of know what you're getting in this car. Like, you can just open that up. It's not, it's a, it's a smaller class, so it's not like the biggest SUV there. But yeah, the back seat can be a little bit. There can be a little bit more room. It's not terrible. I'm about average height. When I sit behind the driver's seat, when I'm in there, it's just a little bit tighter. For kids, it's fine. Even, like I said, for average people, you're sitting behind an average adult. It's a little tight. It's not uncomfortable. It's a little bit tighter. But other than that, I mean, this thing is great. It drives. So that brings us to our first category here, which is our Fat Guy in Little Coat Award, which is named after, of course, Chris Farley and Tommy Boy, which is when Chris Farley takes David Spade's jacket, starts singing Fat Guy in Little Coat, dancing around with it, rips it. Just something that doesn't quite fit. For me, this car's got a great design. Everything really fits with this car. So this is the extreme nitpick of nitpicks. It's the nittiest of picks, or the pickiest of nits, whichever way you want to say that. Um, it's really, really a nitpick. I had to struggle to come up with this. I just wanted to leave this category in. So I'm going with the actual name, Velar. Um, it's a Latin word. I had to look this up. It's a Latin word. It is meaning in veil or veiled. It is kind of a cool backstory for why Range Rover went with the name Velar. It's because Velar was the original code name for the original Range Rover, which was being developed in the 1960s. So it's cool that they went back to this when they launched this back in 2017, but um, it doesn't quite fit with the lineup that you have with Range Rovers. You've got the Land Rovers, and you got Range Rover, and you've got Discovery, Defender. Velar doesn't quite match up. It just doesn't have the same feel. So that's where something that doesn't quite fit. Okay. So as I was saying, one of the great things is the steering wheel is really, really a high point. It's really awesome. Like, first it's got this nice leather touch, metal plating with the Range Rover badge. It's awesome. You've got all your controls. You've got, your forward. You can answer your phone if you're just on Bluetooth. You can talk to the car. This is your volume control, which is fantastic. It has a great feel. It's really easy to use. You don't lose your spot. I like that it's rolling. I'm really a big fan of that. I don't like when it's clicking up and down. I like that it's metal. Just great, great thing. This can be your selector. This is how you set your cruise control. Right here, you can turn off lane centering, which is awesome. You can turn that on and off. It's great that you can just click that wherever you're at. And then, of course, your heated steering wheel. So great job by Range Rover on that. Really nice size screen. Uh, just really, really nice materials in this car. This is just really, really well designed by Range Rover. Here's what I mean when you start up. So you've got your shortcuts. This time Android Auto came right on, so it hasn't been a consistent issue with it being off or anything. It's just something that's happened a few times that I wanted to call out. That sometimes that disconnects. Again, it's not a major deal to reconnect it. There's your Android Auto symbol. You'd also, if you have an iPhone connected, you'd see the Apple CarPlay symbol. Is you get your defrosters, front and rear access there. You got your climate controls. You can click on that, and it brings up. There you go. Your heated seats, cooled seats. It's really nice. I'm not the biggest fan on full touchscreen, but the fact that these side menus are there is really nice. You got your camera, you've got your little icon that brings up your shortcut screen so you can turn off, stop, start. You can, change your auto themes, which that means if it's going to go darker or lighter, like dark screen mode or brighter mode, white screen. Um, change your audio right there. So it's really, really pretty good. From a value point of view, I think it matches up with most other luxury um, OEMs out there. It just does a really nice job with everything that's included. Like the seats are incredibly comfortable, they're incredibly adjustable. The tech is really great, and all that said, I really think that this is a great car. Is it a great bargain? That's up to you to decide. It's a luxury car, so if this fits in your price budget, it fits in your price budget. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The starting MSRP for this version of the Velar is 70,000. It's about 70,000. It goes up to this particular model goes up to a little over 80,000. So again, that's expensive. It's only so from there, I think that it's good. From that, I think that Range Rover also's got like the classic styling here, even though it's the newer style that they've had. It's always Range Rovers have the distinct look, just like Porsches have a distinct look. So this isn't a car that's going to look old in a few years. I don't think this isn't a car that's going to feel old in a few years. I think that the only thing that you might that could stand out as far as a regret is the money involved. And so that's where I just say, again, your budget. I don't know your budget. Your situation. I don't know your situation. But that's the only thing that I would just say is, be prepared for anything like that, because parts on these cars are expensive, and just be prepped for that. Storage space is fantastic. Like the cargo space is really, really big in this car, but passenger space is a little bit tighter. So that's where I get into. Just consider that. Otherwise, this is a great car. I want to talk about what song I think this car is, and I had two songs in mind. The first one was "Take a Look" by Liz Phair. That's because I think that this is sometimes overlooked by people looking at Range Rovers and luxury SUVs. They tend to think of the Range Rover itself, not really the Velar. Sometimes they look at that Evoque because it's because they're looking at the price. So I think that the Velar deserves a look if you're shopping in this class. But the winner of this is, because that's also Love Liz Phair. It's not her best album. It's a good song, but it's not her best song. And I didn't really want to award that. But no, the my choice for what song this is Three Little Birds by Bob Marley and the Wailers. And it's just because you get in this car, it's so quiet, you can't help but feel more relaxed. Like you can be in extreme traffic, you're going to feel better. It's so comfortable, you're going to feel better. It's just everything's going to be all right. So to wrap this up, we're going to score this on our Vision Quest Auto rating of the week. And this week's rating scale is British singers, because, well, this is a British car. And I guess you could more say this about Range Rover in general, but really this particular Range Rover is Rod Stewart. Now, Rod Stewart, of course, started off with Faces, started off as a pretty big rock singer. Rod Stewart, he had a lot of hits, went through 70s, 80s, still going strong. And that's the cool thing. So if you think about like rock singing as being rock climbing, Range Rover can still climb all the rocks you want. It can still hit the trails. But this particular Range Rover is a little more refined. It's not quite made for that same level of off-roading as the actual full-size Range Rover or the Land Rover Defender. What this car is here for is more that luxury vibe. So still can rock, just like I'm sure Rod Stewart can still rock. But nowadays, Rod's doing standards. And so that's what this car is now doing. The Velar is more about getting you from point A to point B relatively quickly, because it's pretty fast, but in a relaxed manner. It's extremely quiet. It's laid back. You really don't, you get into this car and it's just extreme quiet. So that's where I'm going with this. Rod Stewart, the Velar. So I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, this review. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. You can find us on, of course, our main focus, which is Twitter X, but you can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. So for Vision Quest Auto, I'm Frank Nieto. Have a good one. I'll see you around.